Good morning, everyone. It is 9:36 right now. Welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Lou and Jackie here. And of course, folks, you know how big wrestling here is in the state of Iowa, one of the biggest sports, period. And we have the guy who is in charge of one of the most prestigious programs in the entire country, located just a little north of the Des Moines area, is at Iowa State University. Kevin Dresser here. Good to see you, man. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. This is a trip for us.
This nice to have you here, and you brought one of your assistants along with you.
Absolutely.
Tell us who you brought.
Well, I got associate coach Mike Zadek here, and obviously if you're an Iowa wrestling fan, the state of Iowa, the Zadek name's been around the state of Iowa for a long time, even though they grew up in Montana. So, we've got a lot of things to accomplish, and Mike's going to be a huge piece of that puzzle.
How about that? And again, Iowa State, one of the most dominant programs in the country, has been for a long, long time. So this is a tall task you have in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously we're here for a reason. Jamie Pollard made a coaching change in March, or late February, early March, and obviously the direction and the way things were going in Ames weren't up to par, especially for the standard and for what Iowa State's done. The history of Iowa State wrestling is very rich, and so
they were the #1 program in the country at one time.
Oh, absolutely. They've won, I think 8 national titles as teams. If you look at their record, especially prior, from 1987 back, it was unbelievable. And then they've had some great years, a few great years in between there. But, our job, we know what our job is. It's cut and dry for us. We got to get back and we got to start winning at the highest level, not just, top 10 programs. We got to get to the top 10 program, and then we got to get to the point where we're competing for national championships. And so that's exciting, and we're both excited about that.
Well, your name's kind of been in the wrestling world for a while as well, Coach. Named in '86 as the most valuable wrestler for the Hawkeyes. So you have a little bit of history here in our state as well. And even your former coach, Dan Gable, is saying you're the man to get that done because it's important for Iowa to stand up to a certain level of competitiveness because the country kind of looks to us, and he says you're the man to get this done because you kind of know what it takes to make the tweaks to get things in line to make something successful, and it's not going to happen right away, that you have to kind of put things in place.
Well, that's I guess if Gable says that, it's gospel, so
yeah,
we must be good. So I tell you what, we do have our work cut out for us, and but we have the ingredients here, we have the staff here to get Iowa State competitive. And we need to get, for the state of for the state of Iowa, just getting Iowa State competitive with Iowa and UNI right now is going to be a great task and challenge for us. So we knew what we signed up for.
Yeah, Mike, we're going to ask you, what's the first thing on your checklist to accomplish up at Iowa State?
I think the biggest from day one was just gaining relations with our athletes, like just that communication, and then letting them know kind of where we're coming from. So building that relationship where you can have the confidence from one another, and then you kind of have a platform and foundation to move forward together. You just come in there militantly and demand it, it's probably hard to get them to follow. So being able to create that relationship and then going from there.
What made you want to come back home, Coach? Because you were doing extremely well at Virginia Tech, named the NWCA Coach of the Year in 2016. What made you want to take this position at Iowa State?
Well, growing up in Humboldt, Iowa, and really I've said this before, but I fell in love with college wrestling going to Hilton Coliseum when I was a kid. That was my first touch or taste of college wrestling, and so that really made an impact on me.
Yeah,
so,
who were the wrestlers you were watching back then?
Oh my gosh, well, even guy like Chris Taylor, big Chris Taylor. I saw some matches at Hilton Coliseum. I saw guys like Zuspan and Fetland that were North Central Conference guys, like from Algona and Fort Dodge and places up there. And of course, even seeing Gable a little bit. I was pretty young when he was kicking everybody's tail back then, but.
Right.
Just getting to see a lot of those guys, and I can't even name all the names that I got. Those guys were kind of my stars when I was 9 and 10 and 11 years old. So I think that the opportunity to come back where wrestling just is so important, and it's just such a part of life in Iowa. Everywhere you go, no matter what corner of the state you were in, everybody's got a wrestling story, and so that was exciting. And then having relationships with guys like Mike Zadek and Derek St. John, and I had those guys with me at Virginia Tech for a couple of years, and you're only as good as the people around you. So Jamie Pollard is really on board. When you get the athletic director on board, that's pretty important. And just having my hands on guys and relationships with Mike and Derek, and then those guys bringing in a guy like Brent Metcalf. You're only going to be good if you're around great people, and so I learned that early on, and so put all that together, and you start brainstorming, and it was pretty hard to say no.
How does the atmosphere compare to where you were at Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech was a great place, and it was a different situation because when we started at Virginia Tech in 2006, there was no tradition, there was no. It was really bare bones. It really, and I'm not saying this negatively, but it wasn't super important there. So there was no pressure. So it was a situation where, we really started out, we were really bad. I think the first 2 years we got last place 2 years in a row in the nation, last. And so that's bad, last.
Not just last.
And in fact, in the program, Virginia Tech alphabetically so far down the rung that when they put the points up, you are last. So as we built that, it was fun, and it was a great place. And I've just been at, I had 2 great high school opportunities where I was at places for 8 and 10 years, and then I was at Virginia Tech for 11 years. So I think that's my shelf life, about 10 or 11 years. And so I was really ready for something new and a challenge. And I like building programs.
Now, what's a realistic expectation for the Cyclones?
I don't think once you start predicting, then you put yourself in trouble. I think this year, if we could be a top 25 team, that'd be a great year for us. Because I think they finished 57th last year.
Really?
So,
okay.
Top 25. Obviously, eventually, we want to be a top 10 program and a top 5 program as soon as we can. I think, in fairness to us, we've got to get kind of our recruiting classes a cycle. I think 4 or 5 years where we can go out and say, okay, the class of 2018 is our guys, and the class of 2019 is our guys, and the class of 2020 is our guys, and the class of 2021 is our guys, and then we got 4 years of our guys in there. Let's see what we can do nationally. So that's just a good way for me not to really answer your question, but
you tap dance rather well.
When can we start seeing things happen? Because didn't I hear you guys did some matches during a tailgating experience?
Oh yeah, we before the UNI game, we threw some mats out there right in the corner, 16th and University. So that's my commercial, and then we're going to do it here Thursday night for the Texas game.
You are okay.
Yep. So if you come, you can get. We're going to do free food and tailgate, and you get a chance to see our coaches coach and our wrestlers wrestle. And Mike ran a real good workout on the UNI Iowa State weekend, and so Thursday night we got a bunch of recruits in. It's a big weekend for us, and we'll get to have a workout out there.
Is that your way of really bringing attention back to that sport at ISU and really getting in people's faces? They're out there tailgating and have a good time. Be like, don't forget about the great things we're doing here on the mat.
Well, we need to get Hilton busy and full again. So the more times we can put our athletes out there in any venue, and what a great, our guys love being a chance to wrestle in front of all those football fans.
Right.
They're tailgating, and our guys are right there.
Wrestling in
front of them, wrestling off the mat into them.
Yep.
That has to be fun for you too, Mike.
You have to jump in there, Mike, and do a little grappling?
I pretty much ran the workout, so no, which is all right with me. Those days are kind of long gone for me, but it's good to more be on the coaching side of it.
So what are your thoughts about doing that right in front of the tailgate people?
I love it just because the atmosphere. I mean, what better way? You always are underneath a roof and wrestling mats wall to wall and up the sides and nothing else. It's like a dungeon. And you get to go outside and the wind's blowing. There's 5,000 people standing around the mat, screaming and hollering, drinking beer, and you're out there coaching, and the athletes are out there at a raised awareness of all these people and eyes on them. So it's good, not pressure, but it's good development for them to be used to having a crowd on them as opposed to just being in our room working out. So it makes for an exciting time.
That sounds awesome.
Nice.
Again, don't miss this opportunity to see this firsthand. I mean, right in front of you too. Now, Coach, we want to make sure we stay in touch with you. We want to make sure that you come back and check in periodically and talk about the other things that are going on, like the Cyclone Regional Training Center. Definitely want to mention that down the road here if we can do that.
Absolutely. We've got a chance to be in Hilton Coliseum 7 times this year. We're going to do one dual meet this year at Cy Stevens, which is our indoor
facility,
Broadway theater atmosphere, and so we're going to do something different this year that they've never done before at Iowa State. Is put a wrestling mat on a stage and have a New York City Broadway experience / wrestling match. So we're going to do some different things. It's a great opportunity. People can get online and start buying season tickets right now. I think we're rocking it right now, but we want to continue to sell more season tickets, and so. kids like to wrestle in front of a lot of people, and that's one thing we've got to re-energize and reignite here.
Yeah, back when, it was at the heyday, when Iowa State wrestling was at the heyday, you would go to a wrestling match and it was as packed as a basketball game.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, Coach, we're excited to have you back home with us here in Iowa. Is there something specific either of you are looking forward to as we head into the season?
I'll let Mike answer that.
Okay.
He's
Specific, probably just the growth and development of the guys.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the ways to probably answer the question earlier about what our prediction, because we're not going to really predict a number or an accolade at the end of the year. It's about the development individually, and then if we can take care of that kind of development with our guys and then the guys coming in, then we can start looking at, obviously every time we step on the mat, we want to win everything, every time. So with that said, you have that same mentality, and then you have a recipe on how we are going to achieve that. So that growth with our guys buying into our philosophy and our ways as a coaching staff, and then seeing the progress throughout the season, and then they can start seeing maybe the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, when corners are turning and things are going more their way. Because right now, I think somebody told me last week, a preseason came out, that we are second from last in the entire country right now. So that's to me, you have a lot to look forward to. And I think that is a little bit of chip for some of these guys now with the way we're thinking and how we're trying to teach them. So I think the biggest step now is just kind of turning those corners, gaining that momentum, and then they're going to start seeing what we're actually talking about. And once they start seeing it, they start believing it, and that's just a snowball effect. I mean, there's a lot of motivation.
Begins.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. Welcome
good
home
stuff.
again.
Yep.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks
Thank you so
for having us.
much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it. Iowa State wrestling. It's back. It's coming back. So keep your eye on them. We'll keep up to date as to what's happening up in Ames and all that. Totally serious news coming up next, including stories about these guys that broke out of jail and then broke back in. We'll try to explain that next.